there's some stories like that I know that you've gone through. We've talked at bonfires, over coffee, over our
Yes.
phone calls when I was living in Richmond, right?
Loved them. Yeah.
There's one that stood out to me, and what's really funny is I didn't know about it until I listened to episode 68 of your podcast, 7 Minute Stories,
Yeah.
the Spotlight.
The spotlight.
And I go back, that's like a binge episode. I know that you're fans, they binge. Like it's kind of like watching Seinfeld for me. Like I go back and like, oh, I gotta watch my
Yeah. Listen
favorite
to them
episode.
again. Yeah.
So episode 68, 7 Minute Stories, link is below in the comments. This episode, man, is
Want to break that down? We're going to break this one
I
down.
can you yeah,
Oh, hell
we
yeah.
need I want to talk about this because there are still things I after listening to the episode,
Sure.
I had questions that
Yeah.
you and I haven't had a chance to break down. So let's
Well,
do it.
let me just take you to the moment, if I could, where I'm at the Bowling Green State University, Northwest Ohio, about 2 hours away from where I lived, far enough, close enough. It was a perfect university for me. And I was in the area of a theater where you run the spotlight. I'm above, right? And you know how it is. You see movies, it's like, get the spotlight on the person.
Right.
I was running the spotlight. I had an emotional issue that was occurring. I was so frustrated. Something had made me so angry, so bitter, so out of control, Anthony, that I did something that actually forced someone to run up the stairs to where I was. And I'm in a room, right? And the door is shut. And I must have locked it accidentally, but there were people pounding on the door saying, let us in, let us in. And I had to face a decision whether I opened that door or not. And what was I going to tell them?
Hold on a second.
Yeah.
Let's back up.
Yeah.
That sounds incredible. And I cannot wait to hear more on that. You were in school for theater. You were a theater major. Am I right on
Yeah.
this?
Yeah. So
Okay.
I ended up it was a communication degree with a theater emphasis. But the point is, I wanted to, just like we were talking about one of the episodes where you were pursuing a dream in New York,
Right.
with music. And for me, I had decided, it was after about a year or so, because I was into music too, my first year. And this is a different story about the audition, getting into because I played guitar. It went terribly. So my first year was a wash. I was an undecided major, decided to get into theater because I got cast in a couple of small plays on campus. And so I was like, I'm just going to do this. I'm going to do this performance thing. So yeah. And to kind of justify the major, or at least to, my parents and stuff, it was sort of like, oh, it's communication, so that it was like more professional. But with a theater emphasis. But basically, bro, it's just like theater classes. I'm learning acting on the stage, presentation, script analysis, all that stuff. So yeah.
So did you have any interest whatsoever? I think this is a no, but clarify for me.
Yeah.
In doing any of the technical things, like the behind the scenes, were you in courses that were like, hey, we're going to teach you how to act, but we're also going to teach you how things work behind the scenes?
So it was like a holistic experience, but the bottom line is, my entry point was, I like to be on a stage. I like telling stories. I like performing.
Clearly.
Selfishly, and for the good reasons too. But at that age, it was a lot of selfishness. It's a lot of, I want to express myself. You find a voice, you find a talent, people respond to it. So I knew, listen, I was very ignorant. I knew that things happened behind the stage. I wasn't very interested in actually doing anything behind the stage. But unfortunately for me, at least in my mind at the time, my immature mind at the time, a lot of the program was a holistic experience where, they had room for actors and performers. And then when you auditioned, if you didn't make the play, then they would put you on these behind the scenes, running stage manager, lights, line produce, all these things that are so important, by the way, if people are doing this now. But brother, when I'm like 18, I'm like, I want to be on the stage. I'm the star.
You're
now,
the star.
Bottom line, Anthony, I'm going to tell you this straight up, all being humble, but being truthful. I was effective as an actor, even as a raw, unrefined actor.
Sure.
And there was a bit of, and this is what I'm always going to stick with this. There was a bit of kind of a clique where there was like people who I was new to the theater. So I wasn't in the clubs. I didn't hang out with the theater people. So what you would see a lot, and this happens to a lot of people, right?
It's politics.
Brother, people right now listening, there's a group, and it just is like those are the people that always got the roles. It wasn't that I
Right.
couldn't get better. It wasn't that I was the greatest actor of all time. But I'm going to be honest with you, Anthony. I'm looking around the room and these auditions. I'm not really impressed with what I'm seeing. And what was really weird was that there was a lot of people getting main roles in plays
Hmm.
that the performance didn't justify. Now,
Right.
again, I was naive, didn't know how the world worked at that time. I thought, oh, the best performer or the most right for the role should get the part.
Right.
In my opinion, humbly, that wasn't happening. That just wasn't happening. And it was happening at such a rate that there was a lot of talented people sort of shut out. And so for me, I did this for several years, and it got to a point where I was auditioning. I was given some crazy good auditions,
Right.
and I was getting cast in little plays, but the main stage one where all, where the agents would come, where you would have,
Right.
the community come, the big shows. I was
Right.
not getting cast in any of these, but it was around holiday season. And I thought I could be a good Scrooge, Ebenezer Scrooge, but I just wanted to be one of the main character, one of those guys. And I auditioned, had a fantastic audition. People even said, man, I can't wait to see you in that. It was
Right.
almost a foregone conclusion.
Yeah.
I'm in the play. Next thing I know, I look up on the board where they're casting people. I don't see my name.
This is, can I jump in here real quick? I have a couple
Please.
things.
Yeah.
In high school, senior year, Aaron and I, for those of you watching, went to preschool together all the way through high school.
Yep.
You were in a film in high school.
I
I
was.
forget what the name of it was.
Disclosure.
Disclosure for everybody watching, because he's going to be too humble to say this was a great film feature that he did. Put like I was like, oh my god, I didn't know
Student film for what it was.
student
For
film.
what
It
it
was
was.
awesome. It was action. They showed it all day. People could come in to watch different showings, and I was like, holy crap! I had no idea you could act that well, at
Appreciate
even in high school. So like, I didn't know much about your acting
that.
going through at college and like what you were auditioning for, what you weren't.
Yeah.
So when I listened to this episode, I was like, there's no way this guy doesn't. How did you not get cast?
Wasn't
To
getting
your
cast.
point, there's political games. We all know how this works. This could be like our jobs. This could be acting, music. There's a little bit of a game that has to be played at times. And so you didn't get in. You saw your
Yeah.
name. Walk me through, break down for us and me. What did it feel like when you didn't see your name on the list?
I'm not good at a lot of things, many things, but I found over the course of time that I was decent at certain things: public presentation, speaking, acting,
Right.
and eventually now, like you mentioned, storytelling and doing it on podcasts and things like that. So that's what I grew into. However, Anthony, like I'm trying to tell you, I didn't care if I was like the winter tree in the play. I
Got it.
wasn't even I mean, I wanted to be Ebenezer Scrooge or whatever, or Cratchit, or all these different characters in the play.
Right.
Anthony, I wasn't even cast as a piece of furniture. I'm like,
I'm
we're
not,
talking
I,
a
I'm not
giant
trying to.
a giant ensemble of people. I couldn't even be a coat hanger. This was insane. So what am I thinking? I'm pissed.
Yeah.
I'm paid, first of all,
Yeah.
tuition. There's a lot of money, student debt. I'm not asking. I'm just saying, let me in the play. My audition should have gotten it. So what I'm reading down there, man, like I was, there was not a sense of entitlement, but I was just frustrated that I didn't even get noticed, and I almost felt it was a personal attack. And so as
Right.
I'm running my finger down the list,
Okay.
and my stomach is dropping because I don't see my name and how much work I put into this,
You're pissed.
I'm pissed. I'm angry.
Yeah.
And then here's the thing that happens. I'm glad you asked me the question. I get a tap on my shoulder, and it's the director of the play. No names, please. By the way, if I see you again, we're gonna have a conversation.
We're gonna talk.
He not he taps me on the shoulder, and he goes, "Hey, good news." I'm like, "Oh man, they made a mistake." He goes, "You're gonna be running Spotlight for the production of A Christmas Story." Or, I'm sorry, not Christmas Story. You know what I'm saying? The freak. What's the name of the freaking play? Christmas Carol.
There it is, Christmas Carol.
Yeah. Christmas Story is another great movie. But yeah, so he's like, "You're running Spotlight for the Christmas Carol."
So
My jaw dropped.
he leads with, I have good news.
Got good news.
I love, he tries to use the old sales 101 trick or communication trick of like, hey, I'm going to start with this good news, right?
Yep.
First of all, in your mind, this isn't good news. You're
It's terrible
pissed.
news.
You just got done scrolling down a list and you probably felt, I could be wrong, just a sense of defeat.
Yeah, I felt terrible. And in fact, you're right. Not only did I feel bad, then this dude tapping me on the shoulder saying,
Mm,
I have good news. I'm on a high again for a millisecond.
yeah.
I'm on a freaking roller coaster ride. Then on the top of the high, I'm skydiving from a mountain back down when he says spotlight, because I'm like, man, I thought I was in it. I wasn't in it. I am in it. And now on top of that, listen, my state of mind at the time, you have to understand, 18 years old, 19 years old,
Right.
I'm already feeling upset. I don't have an outlet. I found something I'm really good at. I'm not being acknowledged. Like my adult self looking back on it, I realize we'll get to the moral of the story here. But the point is, at that time, I didn't know how to communicate my frustration. So I kind of held it in. And
Mm,
especially with authority figures and you're younger, I didn't want to like storm into
right.
his office. And I actually was so upset with that situation. I was nervous to say anything to him because I didn't want to offend him or get angry. So I thought to myself, I'm just going to deal with this and I'm going to run spotlight. What I didn't realize was that I probably should have said something about it because it changed some things.
Before we before we get back to the locked door and room situation,
Yeah. Pounding
how
on the
many
door. Let us
there's
in. Let us in.
what I love about this moment is I'm learning more about
Mm.
this story. How many days did you have between finding out you were running Spotlight and not Cast to the actual performances?
About a week.
You had a week. So,
Didn't sleep much.
so I think a lot of us can relate to, okay, in the moment, you're pissed, you're frustrated. And they always say in life, like, give it a couple hours, give it a couple days to cool down.
Mhm.
Everything should kind of even out a little bit. So, did you find any sense of like feeling at peace with this after a day or two? Maybe you go get some Taco Bell, get a six pack.
Great reference.
Did that's a whole conversation, Taco Bell. Did you feel better about this at all after a day or two, or was this consuming your thoughts?
Bro, and this is great that you bring this up because there's the men we are now and the men we were then.
Yeah.
We all
Yeah.
and women, right? We all go
Yeah.
through growth processes. At the time, I didn't realize there's a couple things. I have been for a long time. I know you can relate to this. I won't tell your story. Dealing with anxiety, right? Anxiety
Yes.
disorder and things of that nature. We can talk about
Yes.
that different show.
Right.
The reason why I bring it up is because of the fact that I didn't really have the tools. I'm in therapy now. I have coping I have ways to be able
Right.
to handle that. We talk about going to different gears, third gear. One of my friends, Maurice Bernard on General Hospital, soap star. I remember talking to him and he goes, stay in third gear when it comes to anxiety. Because if you go to fourth to fifth, it's over. And so that week
I'm not
should have
trying to laugh.
listen, that week should have been a week where I was de-escalating the situation with taking my meditation, praying, do
Right.
whatever you got to do. My
Right.
anxiety got the best of me. It got worse. As the week went on, I got more and more angry. I'm spiraling into a state of frustration and
Okay.
anxiety. Next thing I know, it's time to do not only rehearsals, and I did that. So we did a few of the rehearsals. Okay. I
Okay.
won't jump ahead here. I just want to say there was a few
Yeah.
rehearsals and they showed me the spotlight, did the thing. Bro, like these rehearsals were hours long. So I'm
Uh,
sitting in that room and I have to show the spotlight on certain cues on certain people. And I'm seeing the people in the roles that I should have been in.
that's
I'm
that's
having
the
to I'm having to watch them live the dream I only wish I could live.
so not only let's just like recap. So not only do you not get, you're not even a piece of furniture. You're
Nope.
not the leg on the chair. You're nothing on stage. They assign you to spotlight,
Hid me in a room.
hid you in a, then they make you come to rehearsals to rehearse, spotlighting the people that,
Yep.
that you want to be.
Yes.
You should be the person on stage
In
or the
my mind,
persons
yes.
in
my
your mind.
Yeah.
So now you're shining spotlights on people in rehearsals. Walk us through, what was your headspace like when you're pointing those lights on those folks?
It started okay. And I actually started to talk myself down and have inner dialogues of saying, hey, man, listen, you'll get your turn. I'd already been in college a couple of years. yeah, I start seeing this guy's performance and I see how lackluster it is. I'm like, this is unbelievable. I noticed that each time I had to move the spotlight, I started getting more and more frustrated. As the days went on, we moved towards regular rehearsals to the rehearsal that you have right before the show starts.
The
So there,
dress rehearsal.
and this is an important one because at least in this college, they brought people in from the public, and I noticed that there was some things I started making a plan during that time that would essentially help release some of the frustration I was feeling. And I kind of was wrestling with myself, the morals, and but I solidified the plan.
Okay, I think this is what was the plan? Like when I first listened to the story, like I wouldn't have been surprised if you had gone to the extent of like maybe like photoshopping your face onto the actors like promo posters and stuff, right? Like so that could have been part of
Right.
your plan, but ultimately you arrive to some type of coping mechanism to say, you know what, if I do this thing, it might justify what was taken at or the action against me to be
Yep.
behind the scenes. Again, for anybody watching, there's nothing wrong with being behind the scenes. I think there are some people
Nothing.
that are cut from the cloth of, hey, I want to be
Right.
behind the curtain. There are some people that want to be in front. You're clearly somebody, and I think I am too. I want to be in front. So you come up with a plan. What was the plan?
The plan was to move the spotlight away from people during okay, let me just say this because I know, listen, when I told this story, I got nothing but positive feedback because people understood. I'm putting myself out here and saying I am not a perfect person. Anthony, this was actually something that wasn't really characteristic of me, but I do think it is a symptom and a lesson here. Let me just dive into the situation here, break it down a little bit more. It first started with just moving it a little bit. So what would happen is like we're in the performances now. Now we're past dress rehearsal. There's actually the premiere. We're starting to have meaningful performances, and I start moving the spotlight away from. And by the way, actors that I thought were like, in a lot of these actors too, to be honest with you, some of them were like really smug. So it made it kind of easy because they were kind of pricks to me. So all of that being said, and everything we just discussed in this episode, it started with a little movement of the spotlight, and I noticed it would kind of frustrate them, and also it was just my way of being like "f you." And
Hold on. I
then,
have a
yep,
question. I'm
yes,
sorry to cut you off. I
please, no,
apologize.
please do.
Did you do this in the rehearsal or did you save this guy for the actual performances?
It was during the dress rehearsal, and it went into the
So
performances.
you had a rehearsal for the rehearsal of this in your own mind. You've gone to a place where you're rehearsing manipulating the spotlight. So we're going to fast forward. We're back. So
Yeah, and
you're
by the way,
at your,
this is great because this is what I didn't really get to do in the 7-minute story because I have to condense it. So I kind of
yeah,
had to, and you take all my stories are autobiographical. They're not journalism, but they're true. But you
right.
have to take, how it's like based on a true story to fit it into 7 minutes. You have to kind of take some creative license and move timelines around to tell the larger truth of the story. What I love about
Right.
this, we can break it down. So let me add some things that if we have any listeners here watching this, yeah, I went through multiple tiers of like what I'm gonna do, and I just noticed that at first, Anthony, like it's just felt kind of good to move the spotlight a little bit, and it felt like I was disrupting it, but it wasn't throwing the show completely off. It was just a way for me almost to be like, I'm here. It was I'm here.
I'm me.
I'm
I'm
the
me.
center of the show because it took
Yeah.
everyone's attention. I
Yeah.
noticed people would turn around. And so now I'm like, okay, Anthony gets to the point where during some of the most important monologues of this play, I am actually taking the spotlight and purposely moving it to a different part of the stage so that the actors, by the way, what a terrible thing to do in retrospect. And we'll get to that in a second. My redemption here, hopefully. If people on the show forgive me, Anthony, I'm putting myself out there. But what a terrible thing to do, even if they were dicks. Like I shouldn't have done it. Anthony, at the
Right.
time, though, I just was, I just did it. I did it. I was wrong. And it got so bad that during the performance, one of the performances, there's like a intermission or whatever. And that's when I hear someone running, multiple people running up this stuff. They realize now this isn't a coincidence, it's a setup.
So
they
like
they they're and the door was locked. Anthony, they're pounding on the door. Let us in.
so what's hard about co-hosting this show is that I just can't, I could laugh the whole time. So I'm gonna try to not laugh as much to try to dial myself back in. So there's a so there's multiple performances
Yep.
where you're slowly getting yourself into a rhythm of like testing the waters.
Yep.
First performance, maybe it's a little bit of a move here and there. At some point, you've gone completely rogue
I've gone rogue.
to the point where someone you hear running,
Yeah.
they come to the room. We need to make sure he's okay. So they're running to the room. Did they pound on the door?
Yep.
Was the door open?
It was locked. For some
You
reason, I don't
locked
know
the
why,
door.
I ended up locking the door. And while they're wondering if I'm okay, I'm running through scenarios of how I'm going to explain myself.
So
That's
it's
why I wasn't
almost
answering.
it's almost like you're barricaded in and the police have surrounded the building.
Yep. Yep.
You're making phone calls. What do I?
Hell,
You know you're.
I need a
caught.
hostage I need a negotiator.
You're trying to negotiate.
Get me a plane.
There's a helicopter flying over the building.
Wire the money I need to get to Costa Rica. Get me out of here.
Get me out of here. You might even be writing a will. I don't know. There's all kinds of things that you're probably in fifth gear. You know what's happening.
Yeah.
Do you unlock the door? Did they have a key?
I unlocked the door.
You just said, all right, I'm gonna live in this.
Face the music.
You're gonna face the music. How many people?
Well, there was like 2 or 3, but it was the director, the same guy who said I had good news from the beginning of our episode. Once they opened the door and saw I was okay, the other people went away and the director came in. And this was a moment I'll never forget. And he said, and I'm not quoting it exactly right here because I haven't told the story and heard it in a long time.
Right.
But he said something to the extent of, first, what the hell are you doing? What's going on up here? And what's funny is I actually didn't go into an excuse or I didn't mean to do it. I actually, what I should have done, weeks and weeks ago, telling him I was disappointed. I wish I was cast in this. It hurt my, why aren't I being cast in these plays? I understand your decision, but really, like, is there a way we can work through this? Is there is you have feedback? Anything like, my adult self would do, working through an issue, talking through it. I ended up using it as an extent to justify why I was moving the spotlight. And so he goes, what are you doing? And I said, he goes, your job is to be backstage. You are not the star. He was like, your job is to be part of the show. You're sabotaging it. And I doubled down. I'm like, I'm supposed to be on that stage. This is my foot. I let it out. I was robbed. And I went through this infantile tantrum. And I'm embarrassed to honestly talk about it now because it was so ridiculous. And he basically let me know that my perspective was way out of whack and that I should have been ashamed of myself, which after he said that, I knew I was. And I to this day, that's why I told a story about it, because it's a therapeutic way to share the imperfections and mistakes we make. Here's the reality. And he walked away. And frankly, for the rest of the time, I did readjust and I tried to, move the spotlight in the right place. And I think I may have even said and apologized to some of the cast members.
Wow.
Frankly, I understand they didn't like me before. They didn't like me after that, which is great. And ironically, I ended up throughout the last couple of years getting cast in more plays. I don't know if it was because they thought I was a threat behind the scenes or if it was just that my time had came, my talent was getting better, whatever.
Right.
But when I think about what he said, I'm going to be honest with you straight up. I was completely wrong for what I did. And I was embarrassed for what I did. And he's right. And I think there's 2 lessons here. And people might think I'm just a maniac for saying this. 100% I'm wrong. But there's 2 lessons. One is you need to, put your time in. And even though things are going your way, clearly you got to figure out a way to be part of a show, that it's a collective, that's not just about you. Right. I was so driven. We've talked about this, Anthony. There's a double-edged sword to being driven to something. When you want something, when you're passionate, when you know you have the talent, when you're driving towards it, it can take you to that place,
right,
where you're barricaded in a room. People are pounding on the door. They think you're dead. and you're trying to contact a hostage negotiator. How did I get there?
How did we get there?
And I
Yeah.
got there because I didn't know how to communicate, handle my anxiety, and I was a kid. And I
Right.
think that's a great lesson. Now, there's another way I could have went about it, which is put my time in, or express myself, or talk to them about it, or really just honored the people in the play and honored the play itself, because
Right.
I should have been part of the whole. But however, I'm going to be honest with you, there is something to be said as well about being inclusive of people and not having cliques where people feel, on the outside,
Right.
that they're isolated, that they're, and this happens a lot across our world where people feel not included. And listen, it doesn't mean give people an opportunity because they don't deserve it, but when you
Right.
do see someone who's doing something interesting, I think it's important or talented to let them know that. Or even if their time hasn't come yet, hey, you'll get there. At the end of NBA games, they're like, hey, didn't win this one, but your time is coming soon.
Yeah.
I could have used a little bit of that, but that's not on them. This really is about me. So luckily, here's the thing that's ironic though, Anthony. Think of it this way: even though life, everything has been wonderful since then, learned lesson, never had
Mhm.
anything like that happen again. It is interesting that besides now, really, you and me doing this is really the first actual collaborative piece of art, or creative endeavor that I've really done, true collaborative, because
Wow.
I actually became a solo performer. And so I went from touring the country doing solo performance, then telling 7-minute stories as I do now, solo
Yeah.
performance, the YouTube shorts, solo performance. So I did find that really I do enjoy the solo performance mode. That was just,
Right.
and not in a selfish way, it just fit me better.
Mm.
Clearly, the way I went about it before, wasn't right. The spotlight now is on me with my own
Yes.
work, and I made sure that I'd run my own spotlight.
Oh, that's it right there. That came full circle. You're running your own spotlight. It's amazing the lessons we learn in life, man,
Bro.
because I can guarantee you that there are times where I've gone through things as well, like playing music. I want to be on the stage. It's hard to run the soundboard. It's
Yes.
hard to be someone who's setting up the stage, right? Um,
You're
I was,
watching
what's
them.
funny?
You're
Oh, sorry,
watching
go ahead.
them. No, you're watching them, right? Like you said, it's like the carrot. You're watching them and you just
It's
want to be where
tough.
they're at. Yeah, it's hard. That pull
It's
is very real.
It's very real, man, and I don't this is crazy that this is coming out right now talking about therapeutic. I don't think I've ever told you this, but, um, I went when I was going to broadcasting school, the reason I didn't pursue,
Mm,
a radio career is because I couldn't interview the people that I wanted to be.
mm,
I wanted to be the musician. I don't wanna be the guy that's, "Hey, I got the band coming in town, let's interview them." So it was really tough. Like I couldn't face that. And so I can completely relate to you. I probably
right.
would have done the exact something very similar
Maybe
given
not
this
as
given
intense.
maybe yeah, maybe I would have tuned, I'll tell you what, I'm going to take their guitars out of tune.
You're
I mean,
unplugging the amps.
I'm unplugging the amps. It's amazing. Thank you for, oh my gosh, I appreciate you breaking that down for us
Hell yeah,
because,
man.
and me personally, I wanted to know more about your mindset. And there's always something to be learned from these experiences in life. And
I
yeah,
did.
I appreciate it, man. I
I did.
appreciate it.
I did for sure, man. And that's the thing. Like now, the thing that has always been, it's always been a lesson. And I think of that director. I actually think about, this is crazy. I think about contacting him. I've never contacted him.
Something to think about.
I've never said, I've never sent that email. I've never sat down. I hope he's still, alive. Like it wasn't that long ago, but I think he was older at the time. But at least, even if I felt I even had some rationale, there was no excuse. And actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I feel like I need to. And this happens a lot with my stories. I tell these things, and people laugh, and it is funny, but there's also something to be learned personally. I'm thinking I might email this dude and say, "Hey, do you remember when there was a kid in the spotlight booth and things went awry?" If I just said that, he would know 100%. He would be transported to the moment where, imagine that guy. He's trying to run a play.
Yeah.
He's put his career, everything, and there's this jackass in the spotlight, moving the spotlight, and then to find out it was purposeful. He never thought he'd be looking down that barrel, talking
Yeah.
me off the talking me off the ledge. And let's just say this: I've never run a spotlight since.